Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Start Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we're going to be having a fireside chat with the crew. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Then be sure to check out the website, thelostart.podbean.com. Go check it out and be sure to click on that merchandise tab. Go in there and get you some cool merchandise and help support the podcast, getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. You can also check us out on YouTube at The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. And be sure to smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe, follow, or any other cool buttons that there might be. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, then email me directly at The Lost Art with Andrew Cox at gmail.com. To all the listeners out there, thanks for tuning in and continuing to support us in the efforts that we have going on here. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and go around and see how everybody's doing. We'll hit this round robin real quick. Let's go ahead. Let's start with Mark. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine out here in California. Uh, all is good except the politics, the taxes, the prices, uh, and these strange people walking around all over. But the majority of the people here in California, Southern California especially, are good, good, fine Americans. The weather is kind of get warm here for right now, but the greatness of this is in about 2 hours that temperature is going to drop from 95 to 75 in a matter of minutes, and so it's going to be perfect temperature out.
Yeah, I wish it would drop like that here. I'm sure everybody else is wishing the same thing. Oh man, good times. All right, Krista, how you doing?
I'm actually doing really well. Had the great pleasure this week of speaking to about 320 recruits at Echo Company, and boy, were they motivated. I go and I talk to them, and I was telling them how I ended up at Paris Island on June 18th, 1989, and they were like, "What?" But then I told them some other things, and they were like, "What?" They were on fire for every little thing I said. They were just like, "What?" I
Well,
talked to them about the air station, the F-35s, and they're like, what? So they were just, it didn't matter what I said. These guys were on fire. I think it was like either 4-1 or 5-1 series, and they were on fire, but they were ready to graduate. They're graduating tomorrow, and they're out of here. But so you got some new hard chargers on Fire Marines. So, but it was a good week. It was hot. It's still hot. It's probably 90 degrees right now, and it's hot.
and I'm sure down in your way it's super humid as well. So is
So
that
I
is
think
that
so,
accurate?
a little bit.
Yeah,
Not too
a
bad
little bit.
tonight. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. All right. Well, Aaron, how are you doing?
So down here in Florida, we're not a communist state. We are we are living the free life. Now everything, in all seriousness, everything's good down here. Hot and humid, muggy, like always. So Mark said the temperature is going to drop about 20 degrees, and I wish it was just not humid here because there is about a 15 to 20 degree difference between day and night here. The problem is the air's so thick and muggy you can't tell the difference. So that's the difference. I mean, you walk outside, you just start sweating. But other than that, weather's great, family's great, doing good,
Very nice.
working,
All right.
working.
Working. Working it hard. I like it. All right, Mike. This is good news, Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, Andrew.
It's
Every
good.
day's a good day. Just a busy week working, hot here too. And I know that humidity aspect. Yeah, it's sun's going down here, and I just let the dogs out, and let them back in, and I was standing out there for a minute, and I was like, temperature's gone down, and I came in and looked to see what the temperature is. It's only 89 at this point, so we're it's going down, so it's pretty good. So
And 89, is it feeling good at 89 or is it
yeah,
still
yeah. Well, it's better than 98 earlier today. So yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But now looking
I hear
forward to
you.
the weekend. Don't have to work this weekend. So
Ooh, nice. You gonna do something fun?
yeah, actually I am.
Oh, okay. All right.
What do you want to
Uh,
know?
No, I was going to ask, does it include dollar bills, or I mean, what do you got going on?
Well, it's going to include me giving out dollar bills, but I mean, not in that sense. But
So not
no,
receiving dollar bills. Oh,
no,
okay.
no, no,
Well,
no, no, no. I'm not going to be getting
yeah,
anything thrown at me. But
yeah.
not that I'd be in like in your dad bod clip, the little meme you sent the other day. My eyes are up here.
That is a
Now
good clip, I must say.
my wife got me tickets, and she gave them to me at Christmas time, and she got me tickets Saturday night to see Def Leppard, Journey, and Steve Miller Band in Atlanta. So
Get out of town. Are you serious?
yeah, so I'm driving up there, and she's driving down from Knoxville. I'm meeting her at the hotel where we're going to stay at, and we're going to the concert. Stay up there Saturday night, and I'll boogie back sometime Sunday.
You know what? You're not welcome here anymore. I'm just
Hey,
going
I'm
to say
sorry.
that.
My
I'm very
wife loves
offended that
me.
you
I'm
get to go.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Ah, man, your wife doesn't love me at all. She didn't give me any tickets. That's not right.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a good time. I'm jealous, that's for sure. All right. Well, we'll get into our next segment here. This is Veteran News with Mark.
I'm there. So the veterans news for today, I've only got one subject because I wanted to go just a little more in detail with it, but it has to do with the VA home loans. Okay. So if you honorably served and have been honorably discharged, you rate, well, actually, even when you're in, if you have a certain amount of time, the required amount of time in the service, you qualify for a VA-backed home loan. So there's the regular VA home loan. The Veterans Administration will give you mortgage assistance if you already have a VA loan and you have been having some issues financially or whatever like that. So what the beauty of the VA loan is they guarantee a portion of it for your lender so that they can hopefully give you better rates, and you don't have to come in with a closing costs or there's no down payment, no closing costs. Just imagine out here in California, average home is in San Diego is $1 million now. You got to come up
Oh
with
my
20.
God.
You got to come up with 20% of that. Where are you going to save up $200,000 to buy a house? You're a young service member. I remember back in '96 when I bought this house. I was a sergeant, 3 kids, living on the Southern California economy, trying to buy a house. Like, wow, I couldn't save up enough to make a down payment. The VA loan gives you that grace to not have to provide a down payment or closing costs, and so then the VA will help take care of you afterwards. Once again, with mortgage assistance, with foreclosure avoidance. They don't want that. If you go foreclosed for some odd reason, there's someone's got to make that pay up that difference. So they want to help
Right.
you avoid foreclosure at all costs. They have a REIT, say you've got a interest rate, and then all of a sudden the interest rates have gone down after a period of time. You can do a interest rate reduction loan through the VA, and to drop that interest rate, which of course drops your home payment down. So there's great benefits that the VA provides to help you achieve, the American dream of owning your own home. And for the best place for someone to start, to go look and see if they're eligible, because they're going to have to get what's called a certificate of eligibility from the Veterans Administration. It's easy to get, but you get that certificate of eligibility, start working with a lender, get pre-qualified on what you can afford, and then start working with a real estate agent and get that home. The enlisted, we are not as good as it as our officer corps when they transfer from East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, whatever. They're usually buying a house at each place, and when they get ready to leave, then they rent it out. So by the end of their career, they've owned 2 or 3 houses. So we need to educate our enlisted Marines a lot better and get them involved in this to get this done. So the best place to start would be benefits www.va.gov/home loans. That's all I've got for today.
Awesome. And yeah, now when you bought your home there in California, you used the VA with that?
I sure did. Qualified through the VA. And what's that? No down payment, no closing costs. And usually you can structure the loan to close at a time. So let's say you close, say, after the 15th of the month on that home loan. You're going to go 45 days until you're going to make that payment. So let's say like next week on the 16th, you close on a home loan. You're not going to make a payment for August, September, most likely not till October. So you can actually live in that home, up to, like I said, 45 to 75 days. It all depends on your the home loan lender and everything like that, how they structure it.
Wow, that's really cool. And
you
has
could be
anybody
collecting
done
that BAH and not making those payments.
Yeah, absolutely. Has anybody done what were you trying to refinance on the home? Has anybody done
I
that?
I actually just did a interest rate reduction on mine.
Yeah, we did. We did one for us last year.
Very nice.
Last spring, yeah.
Wow, man, that's a really good deal. And the VA, they got some great stuff out there. It's just a matter of going to find it. And I was talking to a gentleman this week. I think it was yesterday. But I was saying to him, it's all about contacts and talking to people. So if veterans are talking to veterans or military talking to military, we need to let everybody in on these tips, these tricks, all that type of stuff, so everybody can benefit from it. It's there. Might as well use it. That's the way I look at it.
Definitely. You earned it. Use it.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, is it Krista, Aaron, Mike, have you guys, I know, Mike, you were saying that you've refinanced your loan, but have all you guys gone out and used the VA loan? Yeah.
We bought our first home with it, I think in 2002 when we came back from Hawaii. And we had it. And then when we had to buy a larger home, when Ron's mom came to live with us, we basically bought it, we used his. I have one as well, a certificate of eligibility since I was a Marine. And so we basically bought the other house and sold that one. And basically what they do is they pay off that one and then you just purchase another one. It's the same certificate with Ron's. And then when interest rates went down, we did refinance with a lower rate. We were able to do that. And then what happened is what I've asked the VA, I've called the VA several times because I wanted to know if I could purchase another piece of property using my certificate of eligibility. And they said, I cannot. And what happens is, well, I could, but what would have to happen since we're married? I would have to move into that home and prove that I'm using that as my primary residence because I wanted to purchase some home property in Alabama, where it was my grandfather's home. So I would have to move out and that's the only thing with the VA loan. It has to be your primary residence. So I would have to prove that Ron's living in his primary residence and I'm living in that loaned home as my primary residence. And, I don't lie or cheat or steal. So I don't want to do that, obviously. And then we looked at also using the VA home loan as getting a building loan. And that there's some caveats with that and things like that. So that's a little bit more difficult, but you can do it. There's some things you just have to find out all the facts about it. But no, we used it and it's great because like you said, we're working class people. We don't have a lot of money to put, sometimes 20% down or 10% down on our first home was $156,000, and then this home was more, things like that when we had to upgrade for Ron's mom to move in with us. So, but we've had good experiences. And also, that's what the VA is. They're that backer. They're that backing,
Correct.
to say that. And that's what that VA means, that certificate means. So we've had great success with it. And otherwise we tell our children we wouldn't have been able to do it without it.
Very nice.
To have it.
Yeah, for sure. And now there is business loans and stuff like that too through the VA. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
So if you're out there, you want to start a business, do something like that, you can look at that as well. VA's got some great benefits. We just got to take advantage of them and figure out what they all are. I'm sure there are hidden benefits everywhere. Maybe not hidden, just maybe not everybody knows about them. But go to the VA websites and check all that stuff out. All
Yeah,
right.
it's easy to start at va.gov. You can start right there and start clicking.
Yeah.
Highly recommend
Everything's
when
at our
you're
fingertips.
eligible. Yeah, if you're eligible when you're in, you need to go ahead and do it, even if you're still in. That way you've got it, and it's one less heartache you have to deal with at that point, getting out or retiring or whatever. So, but we
Yeah,
had to
good point.
actually use, Mark, what you were saying with like foreclosure and that. Because unfortunately, when I got out of the Marine Corps, we were doing our best, paying bills, and we bought the house with no expectation of anything happening. And all of a sudden, we get a letter in the mail from, the bank that we had financed the house through with my VA loan. And it was basically, oh, we apologize to tell you this, but hey, we grossly underestimated your escrow account. So they raised our house payment almost $800 a month.
Whoa.
Wow.
And we're
That's
like,
crazy.
we can't pay it. So, we were continuing to pay what we were paying before for that month. And then at the beginning of the month, we would pay pay difference. So it was caught up. Well, the bank wouldn't accept it till it was all there at once.
Right.
So, next thing you know, you're a month behind. Next thing you know, you're 2 months behind, even though you're still paying. And at the time, I didn't know about, going to the VA, going back to them and saying, hey, this is what's going on. And we finally got to a point where literally the county sheriff showed up and handed us a foreclosure notice, said, you got 30 days.
Wow.
And it's like, so we're like, well, what do we do? So we started went and talked to an attorney in Albany. And he's like, well, you can do a bankruptcy on the house to save the house. But he said, if you used your VA loan, he said, you need to contact the VA and talk to them about this because they can stop this whole thing right now. And I was like, really? He goes, yes. I said, well, I didn't know that. So I called the VA and the representative I got, I was probably on the phone with him 2 hours and I was explaining everything to him. And he's like, he was professional, but then all of a sudden when I started talking about the $800 increase, he's like, the hell out of here. Are you kidding me? No, bull, Yeah, he goes, I'll be back in touch with you in a day or two. But, next thing, like the next day he calls and he's like, hey, I called the bank. They're willing to stop the foreclosure, but this $800 thing still isn't negotiable. But we're working to try to do this and do that. And finally, we got to a point. He said, "Hey, VA rep said go back to the attorney and bankrupt on the house, file bankruptcy." He said, "That's it. That's my best advice to you." So we went to back to the attorney, and we were literally there. It was the day before the foreclosure was supposed to happen, getting ready to sign all the paperwork. And the VA rep called and he said, stop what you, he literally called, but he had the attorney's number too and called him and he said, do not let them, if he signed the paperwork, shred it. Do not, the bank has agreed to basically they go back and I forget what they call it now, but they basically go back and look over the contract.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you cut out, Mike. Say it again.
I'm not sure where I cut out, but
you went back and you were saying that he went back to the bank and the bank finally decided that they were going to do something. And I don't know, you cut out.
Yeah, they basically postponed a foreclosure for I think it was 60 days or 90 days, and they agreed to go back and do a loan modification to go back through the loan itself and look at all the figures and the numbers and everything. They were able to lower the interest rate, and they actually seen where there was a clerical error. It was on their part, and the VA held their feet to the fire on that and said, "Hey, that's not their fault. You're not doing this." And it took about 45 days, and it finally went through, and it actually dropped our house payment like $200 from what we were originally paying when we bought the house.
Oh wow!
And stuff like that. So yes, it is. They definitely saved us on that one. So that's one thing I will say about the VA.
Yeah, that's really cool that they completely fought for you and went and even talked to, called the lawyer to tell you to stop and everything. I mean, that's fantastic. Wow. Anything else on this topic? Nope. All right, we'll move on. We're going to go to current events with Aaron.
So we all know what the current event is, right?
Does that have
Joe
anything to do with your
won't
hat?
go. Yes, Joe won't go. That's what we'll start with. This is from Reuters. As everybody's been paying attention to our current president and how badly he lost that debate and all the excuses we've heard since then, there's been some skepticism across the Democratic Party. So from Reuters, they're basically the way the article is. I'm not going to read the whole article, but the way the article is written, it just talks about all the people that, basically how we got here. While acknowledging that he was 81, he's no longer a young man, blaming exhaustion. Y'all have heard all the excuses. But they kind of go along the lines of, what some other folks have said. Obviously, we've heard now after George Clooney, echoed some of the concerns. Some of the Democratic congressmen and women have kind of, had discussions behind closed doors. Of course, none of us really know what's being said. They've asked the questions to some predominant Democrats, and they are kind of dodging the question, but really acknowledging that there's something wrong in a sense, right? But they won't come out and say it. This article mentions some Democratic fears with basically, invoking the 25th Amendment and putting Harris in. What it says about a dozen Democrats, including elected officials and activists, many of them in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, all expressed deep concerns about Biden's mental fitness and ability to beat Trump. But they also had little trust in a bench of Democrats led by Harris. And I think we all kind of understand and know about that because, remember, she was the border czar, and we see how bad the border has turned out.
I forgot that she was the border czar. Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's funny. This is Reuters. They're not going to say who mentions it, but they say it has to be Harris. And I don't think that puts us in a better position to win than with a hobbled Joe Biden, said one senior Democrat in Pennsylvania. I think we know who that might be. But yeah, to that point, it goes on Congress fears and traditions, there's, amongst the different caucuses and stuff like that. Well, tonight, remember, he's supposed to do the big boy press conference tonight. I will let y'all know I started watching it, but it's literally like the debate. It hurt. So I didn't I watched maybe 5 minutes of it and I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. You can kind of see it was kind of, well, we'll watch it and we'll discuss it later, but it's on tonight. We'll all see the recording, but at the same time, they're loaded questions, right? It's all scripted. It's all set up, this, that, and the other. There was one thing in here, if I can go back and find it. Well, here's what he's leaning on. It says Biden believes in Biden. He said, my dad, who fell on hard times, always told me, though, champ, when you get knocked down, get up. Get up. He said his mother taught him failure at some point in your life is inevitable, but giving up is unforgivable. My thoughts on this. Oh, there was one other thing in here. Okay. This is what I don't understand. Biden has surrounded himself for decades with a small cadre of senior aides, such as political advisor Mike Donilon, counselor Steve Ricchetti, and Deputy Chief of Staff Bruce Reed. For decades, this guy has been advised by at least these three folks. So now we know kind of a sense, or have a sense, of who's kind of running the country. And it definitely is not him. What I will do is pause right there for any comments on the current events, because this is kind of taking hold of everything else in the country. I do have one more current event, but it was it's more local related, but it's kind of a funny story. So I'll pause.
Well,
right there.
I have a comment about something you were talking about, was the when you were saying oh crap, what was it? Man, I went in and then went right back out. Anybody else got something? I'll think of it again. Sorry. Oh, I remember the debate. You were saying loaded questions when you were talking about tonight. And I will say, although maybe the questions were given to people in advance, that could have happened at the debate that they had. I will say that, what was it, CNN, right? They did a fantastic job on that debate. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. But they did exactly what they were supposed to do and held everyone to the fire and kept on moving, which was really cool. So it was funny you're saying loaded questions, but yeah, I thought CNN did really well in the debate.
Yes, I agree with that, but you just mentioned something, said, holding their feet to the fire. The left media is not going to hold anybody accountable that needs to be held accountable the right way, right? They're going to come and they're going to attack Trump. They're going to attack the right. They're going to attack Republicans, right? If you're not a progressive Democrat, they're going to attack you. Look what they did to RFK Jr.
Yeah.
That was a shame. They should have held a primary and seen who would have actually been the Democratic candidate. That being said, they're not going to hold anybody accountable. Now, do I think they realize that they have really screwed up? Probably. Are they going to admit it? No.
I
so
agree.
Who should be held accountable? They should probably be held accountable somehow. Yeah, their ratings have dropped and stuff like that, but who's going to hold them accountable?
Yeah, no telling.
Nobody's going to hold the government accountable. Nobody's going to hold the left media accountable, right? So
yeah, and how do you hold them accountable? That's my question. How do you hold the media accountable? How do you hold, at least from the common man's perspective?
Yeah, they're worried about retaliation and this, that, and the other, and revenge. And Trump has already said, my revenge is winning in November. If I win, we got the presidency. Well, we've got the House. Let's get the Senate, and we will start righting the ship. And steadying it and getting it, headed in the right direction. That's his. But of course, again, like I said, they're going to attack and say, oh, they're throwing out this, what is it? Project 2025. Yeah. That is another. Yeah, it's a similar hoax. Gosh. It's like a wish list from what I've seen and heard. It's like a wish list of what some radical conservatives have come up with some things. It's not anything that Trump has signed off on.
It's ridiculous. It's a joke. I mean, nobody has said any of that stuff.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right. But anyway,
I'll be honest, I haven't really looked into that at all. What do you have on that? Because I don't have anything on it.
Project 2025, nothing. I keep hearing these random things, and you go to try to research it and look it up, and it's like, no, nobody actually, like Krista just said, nobody actually said any of that or has vowed to do any of that.
I can pull it up and send it to you guys later.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a list of these things that no one's even said. None of it. I haven't heard any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In local news,
when I first saw that, I thought it was the whole commandant's thing. 2020 was it? That's what I thought of. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, the commandant? What? It's not though. Yeah.
No. It kind of reminded me of it, but it was like, no, it's somebody.
It's fanaticism.
Yeah, exactly.
Extremism. Mhm.
Right. In local news, this is a
Local
Florida,
news.
so kind of turn into something more funnier than politics, because politics is funny, but it's not funny anymore, right? Uh, so, according to Florida Wildlife Commission, this is out of my location here, near Hillsborough County. It was actually in the Hillsborough County River. A woman was reported during the 4th of July. And approximately an 8-foot alligator bit her in the leg. If y'all are ever down in this area and you go to the Hillsborough River, yeah.
Don't go swimming.
Yeah. So here's some tips. Actually, there is one that's funny that's not on here, but it's like, hey, you're in Florida. If there's water, there's alligators. There's something along the lines of that. But it says, if you encounter, then call. Be aware of the possible presence of alligators when in or near fresh or brackish water. Right?
It makes sense. Yeah.
Closely supervised children. I mean, this is like warning labels written all over it, right? Never swim outside of posted swimming areas.
Huh.
Swim only during daylight hours. Alligators are most active between dusk and dawn. Yeah, that's not the moon glaring off the water at night. Those are little eyeballs poking up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
what's that?
nice.
What's that one video of that woman? I think it was Louisiana, but yeah, she had a real Creole Cajun accent, and she was on like a boat ramp. It was like a concrete ramp, and it was posted. Be advised, this may just save your life or something like that. And she was talking, and she goes, "You got to listen to me. You got to listen to me. This may save your life. You come up to water like this, you come up to this," and she puts her hand on it, and she's tapping the top of the water like this. She picks it up and she goes, "If it's wet, there's damn gators in there."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because I don't care if it's
a
swimming pool. I don't care if it's a big ass puddle. I don't care if it's wet. There's gators in there.
Well, that's kind of true. There are gators.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of gators that got in the pools and all the kind of crazy stuff. They get everywhere. It's pretty wild. Between that and the snakes down there, you got a infestation of snakes. I watched a show where the guys go down and they go hunting them and all that stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there are what do you call it? The non. Basically, they're not supposed to be in this area.
They're an invasive species.
Or invasive species. Yeah. So apparently, I guess some folks years back, I guess, had released, some I don't know, pythons, anacondas, whatever they are, into the Everglades. Well, these things they're finding, 14, 15 foot. I didn't look up details, but some even larger snakes that will take down livestock. Very large animals in the Everglades it'll take down. But yeah.
From my understanding, there's no predators to them either, right?
No, other than hunter, other than the guys that go down and hunt the things,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and of course there's wild hogs and stuff right around there, so they eat well.
Oh yeah, those wild hogs, that's no joke, man. They're everywhere now. It's amazing how many places there are, and they just tell you to kill them. And everyone I've talked to said they taste horrible. The wild hogs, don't eat them, just kill them and leave them out for the coyotes, and then shoot the coyotes. That's what they do here in Oklahoma. So.
Yeah.
Well, the coyotes will mess with livestock as well. But absolutely, the hogs. There's farmers that will sometimes pay you to come. I don't know how much they're paying now because they're getting robbed left and right too. Their land's getting taken. But that's a subject for another time. But yeah, those wild hogs, you get a bunch of them. They're bad in Texas. Well, you're close enough.
Well, it's coming north.
Yeah,
They're coming north into Oklahoma. It's getting pretty bad. And they reproduce so fast. Like you can't get enough hunters out there to kill them off,
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
What a lot of these guys up here do have those big ring traps,
Mhm.
and they'll get a whole whatever a bunch of hogs. I forget what it's called. You get a bunch of them, but they'll basically bait them in. Once they get in there, the trap drops and they're all stuck. Well, what a lot of them in this area will do, they'll actually keep them penned up for 3-4 months, and all they do in that big ring trap is to sit there and corn feed them.
Really?
And then because it changes the taste of the
Their
meat,
diet.
and
Yeah.
it's not as gamey. And at that point, then they just butcher them. And I've had that hog like that, and it's not as bad. But if you get
Really?
like a regular hog, you got to soak that in pineapple juice and all kinds of stuff for almost like brine it for days just to get that gaminess out. And but
Right.
if they're corn fed, they're actually a lot better at that point.
Hmm.
But another
That's good
thing
to
down
know.
here in Florida, Aaron, I didn't know, and I never knew they were until I was watching the thing not too long ago. But iguanas in Florida are an invasive species. I didn't know they were.
Yeah.
And you can actually, like down in like Homestead area, around Miami, going into the Keys, you can actually go hunt the damn things. Because a guy, lives in Florida. We were down there, it was last year or whatever. And he goes, "Hey man, you want to go hunt iguanas?" And I was like, "Hunt iguanas?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "You have to have a license?" He goes, "Yeah, you get like a 3-day license for like $25." I was like, "Well, I don't have anything to hunt it with." He goes, "Dude, who are you talking to?" He said, "I got, he's like, but he's got like a 22 caliber pellet rifle, and stuff like that. So he's like, just you shoot him with a pellet rifle." But when it gets cold down there, like Miami, they post warnings and stuff, don't they? Watch for falling iguanas, because they just fall out of trees and stuff and land on people's
what I
heads.
was gonna say. A couple of years ago, it got real cold, and they froze to death. They'll be up in the trees and
just fall and land on
just
people's
fall out
heads.
of the
People
tree.
get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Wow. Well, what do you do with the iguana? You go hunt them. Are you doing anything with them? Are you eating them? Like, what do they do?
A lot of people eat them. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, a lot of they cook them and eat them.
You ain't gonna see me eating iguana.
Aaron,
That's
go
what I
out and
said
get
to-
some iguana
that's
and
what I
let us
said to
know
this
how it
guy.
tastes.
Said to this guy, his name's Dan. I said, "Well, you eat them or what?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He said, "You just clean them and put them on a grill." He said, "It's just like frog or snake or." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know about eating a damn lizard. I
Iguana
can't."
bites.
Yeah,
Iguana
Wow.
bites.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like
Gator
that-
bites,
just-
iguana
that's
It's like
nuggets.
gator bites, but
It's
iguana
like my
bites.
kid
Yeah.
once was not my kid anymore. They're older, but the kids the dino bites from the frozen dino bites.
Instead of chicken nuggets, they're getting iguana nuggets. Or
Iguana nuggies.
Iguana
let me get the
nuggies.
air fryer. Let me get the air fryer out. Oh, we eating good tonight.
Want some of them iguana McNuggets
Oh,
with a small fry.
You know-
small
I'm actually curious. I want, if there's anybody out there that listens to this that eats
Yeah.
iguana,
Yeah.
I'm curious as to know what that tastes like. That's
Yep.
shoot us an email or something. Let us know. I'm
A
very
lot of
curious.
cultures like Puerto Rico and stuff like that, they eat it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just a normal thing to them. It's not to us.
None of that. What was his name? Tiger's Blood. None of those crazy people. Don't be. Yeah.
Tiger's blood. What are you talking about?
Charlie Sheen. Remember? He was drinking Tiger's Blood
Oh yeah.
back when he was cracked out. Yeah, we don't need no
Oh,
crackhead
yeah.
saying, "Hey, I eat iguana." Yeah, whatever, dude.
It's the
We're
only thing
talking-
you got.
Yeah.
Oh, that's messed up.
That'd be like
All
our
right,
kids
Aaron.
in Arkansas and Oklahoma eating roadkill, possum roadkill.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can't talk, man. We can't talk.
iguana bites, armadillo bites. I mean, whatever it takes, right?
Oh man, gotta love it. All right,
Yeah,
Aaron, you got
guy
anything
I
else
work
for
with
us?
on a daily basis was talking the other day. I don't mean to cut you off, Andrew, but
No, you're
he
good. Go
goes,
ahead.
he said something because there's a big old raccoon wherever we were at. He goes, "Man, you ever eaten raccoon?" I was like, "No." He goes, "Man, it's good." So when I was a kid, my dad used to shoot raccoons all the time when he was out on the tractor. He'd bring it back, and I'm like, "Raccoon? You really ate raccoon? You're like, you really want to eat trash panda?" And he's like, he goes, "The hell's a trash panda?" I said, "A damn raccoon."
Yeah, damn raccoon.
I mean, they used to go, or they still do. They go raccoon hunting here. They have the dogs. They chase them, all that good stuff, you know. Uh, but it wasn't where the red fern grows. Didn't they chase the raccoons? Is that right?
It did. That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
it.
yep.
yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I know
All
people
right. Well,
back home that eat groundhogs, so it's all they eat is
really?
grass and clover. I mean,
I mean, they're grass fed, so you know all
yeah,
the people that
well
want grass fed.
they're organic and range free and free range or whatever it's called.
They
Like
eat
here, whistle pig.
microgreens. They're eating
Here's
microgreens.
here, whistle pig.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, hey, that brings us to the next subject. So we'll just go ahead and jump into it. We got good news stories with Mike.
It's actually pretty hard to find like positive stories or good stories online.
Yeah.
I found some, but they were older. But I was actually came across a couple last night. But it was talking about blood donations and blood transfusions.
Hmm.
But a research group. I'm sorry, I tried to print it out and it wouldn't print out right. But it was researchers from the Technical University of Denmark and Lund University in Sweden came together, and they actually found a way to make regular blood, whether it be AB, universal. They developed it, and they're still working to finalize for like type A blood, but they're hoping within the next 2 years to be able to officially start trials on it. But the impact that would have as far as transfusions, blood donations, and things like that, because they said the whole world in general is in a blood crisis, a shortage since 2020, since COVID.
No
Now
kidding.
they can't get back to the levels they were, and only 7% of the world's population is type O, which is universal.
Hmm.
So that's one of their biggest problems they have. That, and I wouldn't think in today's world, medically it would be, but they said worldwide, and I saw the number, now I can't find it. I'm scrolling so fast I can't find it. The number of screw ups and blood transfusions and
Hmm.
stuff like that with people being given the wrong blood, which causes clotting and that, and actually can cause death. And you wouldn't think things like that in 2024 would really still be going on, but it's a lot higher than you would expect. But they figured out a way with blood that the red blood cells actually has a specific protein or a sugar that defines whether it's A, B, B. And what they found is if they used an enzyme, it actually attacked that sugar and dissolved it to the point where the blood basically lost its characteristic as A or B or A or B.
No
So
kidding.
yeah, and it was interesting. And the person who was interviewing somebody from this research group, they're like, "Well, what is the enzyme?" And he said, "Well, it's kind of funny. It's actually the enzyme from your gut. The the enzymes in your gut are designed to, it's basically a bacteria, but it has a good, your stomach. We as human beings have good bacteria in our body, and we need it. If you take too many antibiotics, that balance changes, and you can get super infections and stuff like that. But they were trying different enzymes, and it didn't work. And they finally, I don't know, I couldn't see why they finally decided to use this. But all of a sudden, they did it, and they're like, "Holy crap, it worked!" And it actually changed the blood into a neutral blood type.
That's pretty cool.
But, the impact, like they said it would have on the world. Sorry, my Alexa just went off for some reason.
They're listening
must
to
be
you.
Must be the ghost in the house. Yeah, California's like,
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You hear it?
Yeah.
Alexa off. But anyways, I thought that was an actual pretty interesting story. There's more to it. Now, I don't have the.
So basically, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that it'll turn whatever blood, the A, the B, or the AB, into basically O, where it's universal.
It'd be a universal blood type at that point.
Yeah.
They said because all the blood, they said there's 24 different. So they tested 24 different enzymes to try to on blood samples, common enzymes and that. And finally, when they had to remove certain antigens from the blood, which they said is basically protein or sugars. And once they did, it completely changed, it changed the blood cell itself into it's almost like a different blood type, but they found it's universal. It can be combined with, once they did it, they could combine it with A or B or AB in it. But they said they haven't completely perfected. It works, but there's something different with type A because it's so common. And it didn't go into a lot of detail about that. But they're hoping within the next 2 years to actually do almost human studies on it and see, it wouldn't be released until it was effective or true. But to get it approved, they actually have to do, unfortunately, human test trials, basically.
Yeah.
I have this strange tendency to trust, when it comes, stuff comes out of like Sweden or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not like big pharma here in the United States that like, well, let's push it through. Let's see how it works.
Well, if you just, if they put the label COVID on this blood samples, you wouldn't have to do the human trials. You just go straight to it. And, bonus, we're there,
This is true. But I've never had to have a blood transfusion. I know people that have had to have blood transfusions, and sometimes it's extremely difficult. Blood supplies, blood banks, and stuff like that to get it. So, it would be amazing if they could literally take any blood.
Yeah.
And, especially if 7% of the world's population is O. Type O. There's, like they said, there's such a extreme shortage. And even now, they said a lot of people, well, there's still so many restrictions on donating blood, too. That's one thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It used to be if you were homosexual, you couldn't donate blood. Some states, and I didn't realize this until I was listening to something the other day, some states still, by law, you cannot donate blood if you have tattoos. If you've ever gotten tattoos.
There was in a lot of places, there's like a certain time frame after.
Yeah, there's a window is what I thought, but according to them, there's still a handful of states that you can't.
No kidding.
If you have any tattoos, you can't donate blood.
Heck, I don't know hardly anybody that doesn't have a tattoo anymore. Does everybody here have a tattoo? You have a tattoo?
Mark doesn't.
Oh, you don't? Mark doesn't have one.
I don't either.
No kidding. Really?
No tattoos.
None.
Wow. I'm impressed.
Well, I'm not because I've wanted tattoos. I never could see myself, the tattoos I wanted was like, hundreds and thousands of dollars. So I was like, I can't see myself forking that money for a tattoo,
Yeah. I understand.
Before I had a family and was married, it wasn't that big of a deal. But now I'm like, I really can't justify doing this or doing that, or
So when I was
Maybe I'm the
younger,
only one. Am I the only one that has a tattoo?
I've got tattoos.
Oh, okay. Krista, don't lie, Krista. Do you have a tattoo?
She doesn't want to say.
Yeah.
She's
She's
got
saying
them
yes.
all over. That's why she's got long sleeves on.
She's got
a
long
sleeve and
sleeves on,
everything.
so
Yeah.
everybody, yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. All right. Well, Aaron, the best thing that you can do is go find a guy that does tattoos in his home that sells the marijuana. It's way cheaper, man.
Yeah.
That's how I got this one right here.
yeah,
Yeah.
You get the no regrets.
Yeah, the no regrets.
yeah,
Yeah.
UMSC. Yeah.
UMSC. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a no lie. I went when I was down on the drill field. Actually, Mark, you were down there at this time, but one of my buddies was like, "Oh man, I got this guy that does tattoos or whatever," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And he come back with a really good tattoo, and I was like, "Oh, sweet, I like that, man." So I was like, I'll go do that tattoo or go get a tattoo from this guy. So he's like, "Yeah, just come on over to my house." And I'm like, "Okay, that's strange, but all right, cool." So I show up to this guy's house in San Diego, and he starts drawing on doing the tattoo and all that good stuff, and then all of a sudden some guy walks in the door and he's like, "Man, I went everywhere, dude. I went down to the park," and he throws his bag down, right? And he's like, "I went to the park and I was selling this stuff everywhere and nobody's buying it and da da da." And this dude's going off, and the guy that's giving me a tattoo just stops and looked at him. He's like, "You got to stop, dude." And he's like, "What, man?" And he goes, "He's in the military. You need to get that and get out." So he had a bag full of marijuana that he's out there selling. And I'm like, "Dude, this can't happen, man." So the guy's like, "Okay, I'll leave." And he goes out and back and starts smoking a joint. And I'm like, "Dude, you got to get him out of here, man." I'm like, "Come on. I don't need this." So the next time rolls around, I want to get another tattoo. So I call him. I'm like, "Hey man, I want to get another tattoo." He's like, "All right, where you want to do it?" And I was like, "Well, not your house." I was like, "You come to my house. I know there's nothing there." So he did. He came to my house. That's how I got some of my tattoos. But
Yeah. So
good
when I was
times.
a young Marine at 8th and I, there was a tattoo parlor across the street from 8th and I. And
Of course, yeah.
Marines were getting tattoos, and then all of a sudden, one of the sergeants, one of the cooks, got busted and went down because this dude was all tatted up too. But come to find out, he was over there dealing with what they were dealing with in the tattoo parlor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got shut down. So I just never. The tattoos I wanted, like I said, were like, I wanted sleeves at one time, but I didn't want to do a little bit at a time. I was like, if we're going to do this, let's just get it done. But it's like, thousands of dollars. I said, I'm not spending my money on that.
Yeah. They are expensive. That's for sure.
Good ones are, yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Good tattoos are expensive. Yeah. That's why mine aren't good. They're just, no regrets. No regrets.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Mine are actually pretty good. So
you were this close to standing in front of Sergeant Major O'Loughlin's
I was
desk.
Yeah, he'd have had my ass then.
Had that
in
report.
a different way. Yeah.
He had the blotter. He's waiting on it.
Yeah, it would have been on the news that night if Andrew was sitting in a chair and be like, largest marijuana seizure in San Diego County history. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been some good times right there.
Whether taking Andrew out and cuss and be like, "He didn't finish my Mickey Mouse."
Oh my God. Yeah, good times. Well, hey Mike, you got any other good news, or is that are we ending there? What do you got?
No, I've got something else.
I like that about
go
the
ahead.
blood though. That's good to know because I have a rare blood type and I really that's good to know.
There was a heck of a lot more to it. Like I said, I tried to print it out, but it wouldn't print out right. And I was going to try to write some notes real quick, but it didn't. I just ran out of time. But yeah, this one is another one. I'm not trying to get into environment and global warming and what causes it and what doesn't cause it that we had talked about before. You know, people and celebrities and people in social media and that, how they're constantly talking about, we need to save the environment, we need to do this and we need to do that. And it was something I had actually heard him, what's his name, Chris Martin with Coldplay, the band, a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. He was actually talking that Coldplay would not do another world tour unless they could find a way to cut their carbon footprint as far as jets, stuff like that. And there was a lot of it in the article. It was literally bashing everybody's favorite, what's her name now? Ma'am, I'm like you, Andrew. I just went blank.
You're welcome. It rubs off. So I'm sorry.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. I should have known that, man.
T-Swift.
This whole world tour and flying back and forth from Japan for the Super Bowl and football games and private jets. But the article started out saying that since 2022, 200 well-known celebrities and multimillionaires combined have flown a total of 11 years worth of carbon footprint just in private jets since 2022. That's just them alone, that they've added emissions and jet emissions and stuff like that. But
that's amazing.
What Coldplay was able to do is they literally sat down with a team and said, hey, this is what we want. If we go on a world tour, we go on a stadium tour, we don't want to tap into, the grid for power, for sound, for everything. So what they literally have is they bring in like huge solar panels and like the floors where the crowds, if they're down, if they're on a football field or a baseball field, but they call them dynamic floors, but they're pressure sensitive. So as you walk on it or people are dancing and bouncing, it's actually generating electricity.
What?
And they actually went to BMW, and I forget, it's in here. And like I said, I'm scrolling real quick, but they went to BMW for batteries, like reclaimed, like electric vehicle batteries and stuff like that, that had been recycled and rebuilt basically, and got them for pennies on a dollar because, BMW's like, well, what are we going to do with them? And literally they're able to power a lot of their concerts with just the energy and the activity of the crowd.
Wow.
Charging these batteries and with solar. But since they started this world tour they're on now in 2023, and they had this group went in and did a detailed study on it, they've dropped their carbon footprint and their emissions footprint by 59%.
Wow.
Since their last world tour in 2017 or something like that.
That's awesome.
But they literally, when they go in, like in Europe and things like that, they literally take everything they have is shipped by train. It goes in from city to city by train. They travel by train. They, ride, city buses, transits, and stuff like that. They highly encourage it. And a lot of them, and even there were some other ones that I had mentioned, have gone to it where if you're in New York City, you take, the subway or something like that, or rideshare or Lyft or something, they're actually willing to compensate you for that, just so to help with emissions and driving and stuff like that. But they started, not having, bottles or cans and what stuff is sold for, drinks and beverages and stuff like that. They literally, Coldplay set up collection points and recycling points, and they take all of that and it's sent back out for recycling, and it goes back into funds. But they said for every ticket they sell, to their concerts, they turn around and they plant a tree. You know, like
Wow.
in the Amazon and all over the world, it's like the tree, whatever organization of the world or something like that. That
Yeah.
they use, like, instead of just throw out plastic bracelets if you're of age to drink and stuff, they're actually reusable LED, they're reusable bracelets, and they encourage you on your way out. Yeah, you can keep it if you want as a souvenir, but they ask you to please return it because they recycle it. And with that, they're actually getting money back so that they can put into more solar and battery. And they actually put in like literally like stationary bike things in the concert. And they're like, hey, if you do this, you'll get at their concerts. Like if you do this, you'll get sit on this bike for 10 minutes and ride it. You'll get like 2 free drinks or a meal or something like that. And it's literally
that's
charging at the
That's
concert.
at the site. Wow.
Yeah. So it's
That's
actually
really cool.
pretty interesting to think that it said it took them 2 years to actually get to this point, but literally 59% they've been able to reduce the emissions and their carbon footprint of, you know, what's
Wow.
going out. And like they said, you know, if we can do it, why can't other people do it? And like there was
I mean, they got a good point.
Yeah, and there's you know, well they did. They made it an initiative. They're like, we will not do another world tour if we can't do this. You know, we'll still perform, but we're not extensively flying here and, you know, multiple jets flying air, you know, equipment and things like that.
Wow.
But
That's
you know,
incredible.
as far what was but a lot of the studies and all that went through MIT. And they said at first they didn't think that they were going to be able to achieve their goal, but all of a sudden when they got the results in, that they had, you know, surpassed what they were trying to achieve. And they said they're not going to be happy till they're at least at 80%, you know, as far as reduction. But they said 72% of all their waste has been that was typically delivered to landfill and has now been reclaimed and sent for recycling and composting because they want, you know, more reusable containers instead of, you know, plastic bottles and things like that. They know it's you know, they can't avoid all of it, but at least that point they can cut it back as much as they possibly can. But they said for every ticket they've sold for this tour so far, they planted 7 million trees.
Dang. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's actually impressive that, and they said
Coldplay's
they're starting to see it more, that more venues and more cities are accepting what they're doing. But they're, you know, and it's to be expected, but you know, we're Americans. There's a little bit of pushback in the United States, you know.
Of
and
course
I don't know
what
anybody's opinion is on it, that, you know, global warming or, you know, things like that. You know, I think it's a natural cycle, but I think that we as humans aren't doing anything to help it in some ways. You know, there's certain things we could do, but they said and I'm trying to find it now, they bought 2 of those, and it was on social media a couple years ago. I think he was some college kid or something, but he invented and patented those waste barges. They're solar powered, but they put them out in the ocean and bays, and they just go along and pick up plastic bottles that are floating.
It's kind of like the water kind of drips or falls down, and then it collects it, right?
But they're able to collect that, you know, the plastic bottles, and I'm trying to.
That kid that came up with that's pretty awesome.
Too many concrete and asphalt forests is the problem.
Yeah. But they said
cutting down. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say we're cutting down, you know, forests to build, you know, subdivisions and stuff like that, and it's, you know, yeah, that's all.
It says here 18. Yep. 18 shows were powered entirely by Torable battery systems made from recycled BMW batteries. 2 solar-powered ocean cleanup river interceptors that they could put in the rivers and the oceans have been 100% paid for and invested in 20 more.
Wow.
Just with what money's been come in from, the recycling, and they're giving a lot of the money back, but they're using what money as far as recycling and stuff like that, they're putting it back into everything else to make the project even bigger.
Holy cow.
They said even though Coldplay still does rely on air travel for some of their shows, they still highly pledge that whenever possible, they encourage in themselves also to use public transit, whether it be train, subway, and like they said in Europe, it's a lot easier, but all their stage equipment and everything is shipped around Europe on train. So that's pretty impressive, but it is funny how the article instantly went to, laid a pretty good smack on Taylor Swift about her and now the criticism. But it said she went, when she started the Aries tour, she went, and it didn't say what month, but at one month, she had flown a private jet 23 days in a month. And now that she's gotten a little bit of backlash for that, for the Aries tour and everything else, that she's cut it down to like 14 a month, where she's only using a private jet.
Wow.
I blame all the Swifties for buying the tickets.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree. To all the Swifties out there, it's your fault that global warming, it's all on you. So
I thought that was a decent, a positive story. I thought, so.
I'm not real big into like the global warming thing and the recycling and all that type of stuff. I mean, I'm not like super big into it or anything. But I think it's important that we try to do things like that, as much as we can. I don't think we're ever going to be able to, be perfect at it. That's for sure. But, we should be able to try at least, it should help in the long run. So I kudos
at least
to
they're trying.
Coldplay.
Someone's trying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're leading by example. They said, "Hey, we're not going to do this, and we're not doing this anymore unless we can at least do our part in this." And they're actually holding to it. They invested a lot. It was their money they invested into it. They found teams that were like, "Hey, can we do this?" They're like, "Yeah, we can do it," and they're actually doing it. And that may be something that goes into everything else, whether it be professional sports or things like that. You're never going to have a football team ride a train. I promise you that. But I mean, you never know.
I don't know. When I buy a football team, I'm going to make them ride the train.
The 1927 Crimson Tide won the national championship, and they rode the train from Alabama to California. And they had a pig on that train. I know, because my great uncle was on that football team, and he rode the train all the way to California. So they did. A football team did ride the train to California to the Rose Bowl championship. And they won.
I do have a question on that though. Did your uncle have to ride with the pig?
Yes, the pig was on
like in the same compartment with the pig.
Yeah. They had to post fire watches.
Yeah.
Everett Sanford Senior. Yeah, he was on the winning championship team. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's really cool.
And his name is on the Walk of Fame at the University of Alabama if you go and look it up. Yeah.
Aaron's shaking his head. He's like, I can't even believe you brought Alabama up right now. He's so upset.
Well, that's because that's the only thing they could afford. They could only afford the train.
Everett Donald Sanford. Yep, he did. They won.
I think they could afford.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Mike.
I was going to say that, Mike. Back then they didn't have any money for those programs, and now it's a money pit. Hence why they have NIL deals now.
Don't get me started on NIL money.
To pay the players. That's a whole nother topic.
All right, Mike. Hey, thanks. I appreciate you getting some good news to us. I know it's difficult to find, but you're doing a fine job finding them. So thank you for that. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. This week in military history with Krista.
Well, this one's been getting put off for the last 2 weeks, and it's not really military history, but it's got a little bit of military history to it. So we're going to cover George W. Bush, the man, and you guys are going to find this really interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about our Texan, our favorite Texan. Well, I don't know if I'd call him our favorite Texan. So we're going to cover him. I do not have a photo to pop up of him, but George W. He was our 43rd president. He was born July 6th. That's why we were going to cover him a couple weeks ago. He was born July 6th, 1946. He is a baby boomer, like a couple others here on this podcast.
Aaron.
He's 77. The other day was his birthday. He was born in New Haven, Connecticut. He was our 43rd president. He served from 2001 to 2009. He is the son of H.W. and Barbara Bush. And H.W. Bush served from 1989 to 1993, of course. He attended Yale University. And believe it or not, he was a cheerleader and a rugby player. I thought that was interesting. Of course, as you know, you have to be strong. Yep, he was a cheerleader and a rugby player, and he was in the Delta Kappa Epsilon fraternity. You had pulled this up for me, and this is kind of interesting, being military history. He joined the 111th Fighter Squadron of the Texas Air National Guard. After completing a year's flight training, he became an F-102 Delta Dagger fighter interceptor pilot. The unit that he was in, this unit, was organized in 1923 as the 111th Observation Squadron, an element of the Texas 36th Division that had fought in Europe during World War II. And was only one of the only 6 Air Guard squadrons that actually fought in the Korean War. When Bush joined this unit, it was tasked with the Continental Air Defense mission against a possible Soviet bomber attack. And so that's the history of that unit. So it was a pretty important unit. He remained with that unit until his honorable discharge in late 1973. Now, we're going to talk about Bush a little bit, and it seems like I'm not really pro-Bush, which I am, of course, and I'm a registered Republican. He was discharged in 73 from this unit because he could not pass the physical. Okay, that's why he ended up getting out. So, in the fall of 1973, Bush entered the Harvard Business School. And he graduated in 1975 with an MBA. He is the only president who has, the only sitting president who has earned an MBA, by the way. So,
no kidding.
And after he graduated with his MBA from Harvard, he went into the oil business. Okay. Later on, also of the former 19 Air Guardsmen, he is the only one to have a background in Air Guard as well. So he later served twice as the governor of Texas as well. And also, one more thing. He is also the last sitting president to have served in the armed forces. So that's something that we've kind of discussed, I think, a few times on our podcast as well.
Yeah.
That no one else since him has served in the military. And of course, as you know, the National Guard is considered, military. So
yeah.
This is something I find interesting that I kind of personally like. During his presidency, George Bush read the Bible daily. However, through the end of his second term, he said on national television that he is not a literalist about the Bible interpretation. So I like that. That's something I favor. He was preceded by Bill Clinton and succeeded by Barack Obama. His election win in 2000 was a close and highly controversial victory over Al Gore, as you all know. His presidency was the one where the election results were sent to the Supreme Court. And that was a big issue, of course, about the Chads, all the Chads, the hanging Chads, the dangling Chads, the half Chads, the punch Chads. His first term was dominated by the September 11th terror attacks, which launched the country into the War on Terror and a subsequent invasion in Afghanistan in 2001. And this proved to be an immensely controversial decision, according to the article that I'm quoting now, as no such weapons were found. We won't go into the details of that. That's just what I'm quoting. On the domestic front, Bush initiated broad tax cuts and the Patriot Act to strengthen security controls after 9/11 and the No Child Left Behind Act. You guys, are y'all familiar with the Patriot Act? Y'all know what that kind of instigated and started? I see Aaron nodding up and down. Basically, this is why we're covering this gentleman now today a little bit, because after I got done doing this, a lot came to mind. And the Patriot Act basically started allowing the government to listen to all of us and spy on us, basically, right? So that was kind of a big, it was a big flag for me after doing this, okay? In 2004, Bush was reelected, defeating John Kerry in his second term, and he was faced with increasing criticism for his handling of Hurricane Katrina and the increasingly violent Iraq War. All right. December 2007, the United States entered the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, and Bush authorized a number of major economic programs to combat the downturn. All right. This is the kind of finalizing thing on a positive note. Bush had the highest recorded approval ratings after 9/11 of any other president in history at 90%. And he had also the lowest approval rating of any other president in history, and at 13% in the midst of this recession, at 13%. So he had the highest ever and the lowest ever of any sitting president at 90 and at 13%. So that should tell you something about his presidency, that it was filled with the up and the down, which I thought was very interesting. And I was unaware of this, after doing some research on him. So a couple little just highlights on him. In 1989, he and a friend of his, Edward Rose, became joint owners of the Texas Rangers, which I thought was interesting. Something that was important to me as someone who's dealt with some serious health issues. In 2001, he announced his support and federal funding for the limited research of embryonic stem cells, that's stem cell research. That's always been highly controversial for religious, on the religious front. In 2002, this was something that was kind of always funny because I heard him always saying this on television. In his State of the Union address, he described the regimes and the sponsored terror on the axis of evil, about Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. And I found that always highly informative about him. And then this is another big bullet point and something that we're facing now when we tried to help our country out and we tried to help the American people out, and talking about the Patriot Act. In 2008, he initiated the $700 billion bailout for the U.S. financial system, and that was signed by him. And that was the first big bank bailout, okay? And we see it now when the government is always trying to bail us out. And I mean, that's not something, they've probably done it before, but in my generation, when I just started seeing our government bail out banks, because his initial, if we think about it, they weren't really trying to bail out the banks. He was trying to help the American people who had their money in the banks, right? Mm-hmm. So you think about, where is this going? What rabbit hole were we going down? When they started the Patriot Act, it wasn't that they were going to spy on you and me. They were going to get the terrorists, get the bad guys, right? It was after 9/11. Right. So you think about the No Child Left Behind. His wife was a school teacher. It wasn't about just passing any child that was failing. It was trying to help all those ones that maybe were slipping through the cracks and needed just a helping boost up. So, and I look at some of these failed programs and the things that were happening that he was doing, and I'm thinking, I'm kind of wincing as I go along, and I'm thinking he had an MBA. He's the only president who's ever had an MBA. Who were his advisors that were surrounding him? Were they giving him bad advice? Was he not getting the support he needed? Who was his cabinet? What was going on with this? So I'm thinking maybe he wasn't getting the best advice. Maybe he didn't have the leadership around him that he needed. I don't know. I'm not an expert on George W. Maybe you guys have some input or some feedback for me.
Can
I
give you
was
some
surprised.
input, but not necessarily based on anything, but other than me. I think that anybody that comes up with those types of initiatives, I think that they all have something good in mind as they're trying to come up with those initiatives. But as they start being implemented and you get more and more people involved in it, then it starts to evolve into something that maybe originally that's not what it was, right? The
Right.
Child Left Behind Act, right? When you're talking about that, I think that's a good example of it. I think he had good intentions. I think Barbara Bush had good
Right.
intentions. But as time moved on and it kind of evolved, well, it didn't turn out that way, or the way they probably intended it, at least in my opinion, from what I saw.
So that's my take on I mean he obviously kept busy. He did a lot of things. I mean, I've got a laundry list of things he did, with Saddam Hussein. That was the way he liked to say it.
Saddam.
Um, you know, um he was a very busy man. He the mission accomplished speech he gave, the emergency AIDS relief. He was a very busy man. He did a lot. So I think overall, I mean, there was always some questions, about the weapons of mass destruction and things like that, and getting us involved, with England and things like that. So, but overall, I think he was a very interesting gentleman. So
Yeah.
that's
He's just a good old boy, in my opinion.
Mhm. Very wealthy Texan, very still in the
Yeah.
oil business.
Yeah. That's my wife's favorite president of all time.
Yeah.
So I will not say anything bad about him.
No.
Uh, But no, I always cracked up. He was awesome. I loved to hear him talk. I love the different things he said. I always enjoyed it. But there's no president that has ever been there that's been perfect. That's for sure.
Oh no, not at all.
So,
We have
but
two sayings that we use in our house on a regular basis. We always go strategery, lockbox, and we say that all the time in our house. And we always say inside thought, inside thought,
America,
all the time. What, Mark?
America.
America.
He's the one.
We do it
America.
all the time around here. We love George. We just yeah,
Old W.
Your
old W.
yeah. So, but I mean,
yeah, I
I
like
could,
Joe George, man. We ought to get him on the podcast sometime. I bet you he'd be a hoot. I'm pretty sure
I
he
mean,
won't
he was
come on the podcast,
president
but-
during 9/11. I mean, you stop and think
Yeah.
about all of that. I mean, because we've all seen those videos. He was literally, where was he? Was he in
On the
Florida? or
He was
something?
in
On the
Florida, I
ground.
think, at a
Yeah, but he
elementary,
was
wasn't
sitting in an elementary school reading the kids when they walked in, and he kept reading. But it's like, can you imagine being the president of the United States and getting that whispered in your ear? It's like, what?
I would have been like, yeah, I gotta go. Sorry, kids.
Mhm.
Yeah, so and so is going to take over. Enjoy.
And he not
They-
only rose to the occasion. I mean, that is some of his greatest successes right there. And
Mhm.
he didn't waver, he didn't flinch, he knew what to do, and he knew how to handle it. So, and could I have done a better job? Absolutely not. So, yeah.
No, but there's always criticism. The other side is always going to say, well, yeah.
Yep. So, no, I think it was.
Yeah, there's a criticism everywhere.
Always.
It happens.
The only criticism I have on that, and again, this could be a topic for another time, obviously, but because we can go on and on about it. But you mentioned advisors, Krista. I think you're probably only as good as your advisors, and I think the difference between him and Trump because again, it's more, those are the two conservative presidents that I've had, during my adulthood, is that Trump didn't always listen to advisors. Now, good, bad, or indifferent. Like you said earlier, it's like, everybody's going to make mistakes and have their, none of the presidents are going to be perfect. But at the same time, it's like, there were some things that surrounded 9/11 that probably, could have deterred or prevented part of it. But at the same time, you've got advisors for a reason. Listen to them, I guess,
Yeah. That's a
I think
good
that's
point.
something he did well.
I would more criticize the advisors because they were probably not forthcoming with some information. But
Yeah.
I think one of the things they're still that they were giving him a hard time about was the thing with Katrina, but that wasn't his fault. I don't think that was the governor's fault.
As somebody that was near the situation, because I was in the Arkansas Army National Guard at the time, and we responded. That was completely on Louisiana.
That was on them.
Yeah.
And so, but it doesn't matter because you know how the buck roll, the shit rolls uphill, and they're going to want to try to blame. Everyone always wants to try to blame someone when they're hurting or they're angry or upset. They don't want to think that how am I culpable? How am I liable? How am I at fault? And that's what I always try to do. See where I'm to blame. How much responsibility is on me? Where's my onus? So when they're hurting, they don't.
Speaking of the Patriot Act, I didn't want to say too much, but we'll call them 3-letter agencies because they're probably listening anyway.
That's the Patriot Act. Yeah. But see, when they started that, it was meant to help bring accountability and try to find things. And you never know you don't know how it's going to play out or expand when when you start something like that, you don't know how it's going to play out.
Well, I mean, the guys on the plane were, they were students, flight students here in the U.S. They went to school here. They got their
in El Cajon, San Diego County.
Yeah. Yep. So
wow, gotta love it.
A lot of histories. Right. I think he did a great job considering. Like I said, if any of us, I would not want that job. I would never want to be in those shoes and have to try to do things like that. I cannot imagine having to be the president of the United States.
I'll do it. It'll be America Day every day, Independence Day every day.
I like it. All right. Well, we'll go round robin real quick. Finish this out. See what we got going to close this. And we'll see what words of wisdom everybody has. Who wants to go first this go round? Anybody want to volunteer? Nobody's going to volunteer. I got to call on you. All right. Okay. We'll start with Krista this time. Krista, what do you got?
I don't have anything this week. I'm sorry.
Nothing this week? Well, you had a lot on George W. So, that was pretty wisdom-like. I like it. All right. Mike, you got anything for us this week?
What, words of wisdom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to find it here real quick because I read something. I was reading an article on Ronald Reagan that he made a quote. He said, "We can't help everybody, but at least everyone can help someone."
Ooh, man, I like that. Reagan was a smart man. Yeah. All right, Aaron, what do you got?
So I cheated a little bit. I did a quick look up since we, got the lesson on George W. Bush here. One of his quotes. I just lost it.
Oh no.
Here's one. Here it is. He said, we know that dictators are quick to choose aggression while free nations strive to resolve differences in peace.
That's good. That was good. I like it. All right, Mark, what do you got for us?
Something all leaders, especially hopefully when President Trump gets back in, but for all leaders, no matter what, whenever you give an order, ensure that either the order you gave or the one you gave it to is carried out.
Oh, yep, that's the important part right there. Yeah, that's for sure. Awesome. Well, hey guys, thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing the podcast with me. I truly appreciate it. To all the listeners out there, as a reminder, if you're struggling, you need any help, anything like that, you can always reach out to the VA. They have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1, or you can text 838-255. You can also go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options are going to get you in contact with somebody that's going to be able to help you out. One veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. The crew cares about you. All the veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. All right. With that, guys, thanks for coming on. And gal, I apologize, but thanks for coming on. It was definitely a good discussion this week. To all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks. We're stopping and we're stopping. Stop recording. Stop.